Okay. All right. Awesome. Welcome to the podcast, Julie Schmerbeck. You're Skyping in from Chicago, right?
That is correct.
Awesome. So, yeah, I guess I want to start it off. Good thing you're an improver. But I want to ask you what your faking it moment, either of the week or of, the weekend was. What was your faking it moment?
Well, right now I'm in a class that is very, very challenging. And so I have pretty much just been faking it every class, which we have our last one this coming Thursday. And so I'm faking being a really good improviser right now. It's the first class for improv that I've taken in about 2 years. And I've been performing regularly improv at this theater called the Annoyance Theater. And this class is with the founder of the theater, Mick Napier, and it's called Advanced Improv. So, but I am not, as much as I do improv and I love to perform improv, I am not great at improv with people I've never met before, who don't really know me. And I don't tend to go for a obvious joke, which many people in this class like to do, which is not bad. They're very good at it, and it's very effective when it's done well. And many of these people are very good at what they do. So I have been faking it a lot lately.
You're just like all over the place. It's happening in everything that I do.
Pretty much. And right now it's kind of the thing that's challenging me most creatively. So I find that I've actually kind of been in a slump for a little bit because it's seeping into all parts of my life, which sounds really depressing. Well, because right now, so I'm doing a lot of creative projects, which I'm very proud of, and I don't like to stay. I like to stay busy as much as possible, which I think is a very common thing when you are a creatively driven person. And
agreed, totally.
Yeah. So, in my I have Burlesque going on, which I can talk about later.
Please do.
Yes. I'm in a Burlesque show. I start a new improv show this coming Friday. But right now this class is the only thing that's really challenging me at the moment creatively. And improv I started doing improv, after I graduated from York, actually. Some time ago. It was 2000.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, like 2010 or 11 or something like that. And I started doing improv because it scared me. And I really found joy in it and freedom when I was around people that I felt I trusted, and it kind of became like a family unit. And that's when I started to thrive and really, really enjoying it. So in a class setting or in an audition setting for improv, I end up falling back into a lot of insecurities that I've gotten over, because I'm around a lot of people that I don't know. And it's obviously like when you're in a judge or when you're in an audition or you're in a class, like the kind of point is that you're being judged and you're voluntarily signing up for that so you can get better or you can, be chosen or cast or whatever.
Right.
Right. So it's a very vulnerable thing, especially because it's improv. You're not going off of anything. It's literally just what's coming out of you. So, so right now, because this is the only thing that's really challenging me creatively, everything for Burlesque is kind of the same thing. We just do it, on different days. So like that's already set and done. And then improv is with people, like you can't prepare for improv. You can just work on it. So this class,
and is the theater like Theater Annoyance? Did you say it was called?
It's called the Annoyance Theater. It's been in Chicago. I think it celebrated 30 years this past year. So it's literally as old as I am.
Right. And it's one of those, like, is it sort of like a UCB program of sorts, like Groundlings, like the types that are like pretty famous for producing people like SNL types, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. There's been a couple, like Bob Odenkirk is one of the ones who's on Better Call Saul, who's come through there. And A.D. Bryant was there, and so, I mean they have quite a few names that are familiar enough now. But usually people that have gone through Second City in Chicago have also tread through annoyance at some point. Like
Right.
IO is another one that it's kind of like all recycled in a way.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
We're just recycled improvers. We just roll with it.
So right now I just feel like this class is kind of getting the better of me and kicking my rear.
Don't worry, you're allowed to swear. It's okay.
Okay, cool. I wasn't, I didn't
My
know.
rear.
It's just trying to be appropriate. I apologize.
That's fine. We say ass all the time on this podcast.
Great. I'm glad, Canada and America have that still in common.
Oh, yeah.
Great. It's just, it's kind of like tearing me apart a bunch because I don't not care about things when I'm creatively invested. And I do my best improv when I decide not to care and just have fun. But when you're in a class with the founder of the theater that you perform at regularly, you have to care.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you definitely have to show, that you're in it and that you put enough effort into it to be seen and don't slack off or whatever.
Right, exactly. So like after about the second class, which there's 7, and we have one more, but after about the second class, I realized 1, this might have been a mistake. 2, everybody here is really great, and I am very different, which isn't bad, but it's just I found like when I started doing improv in Chicago, my very first class, which was at IO Chicago, I was the only female, which isn't really unusual. I mean, it is now, but it wasn't not too long ago. Mm-hmm. So I found doing that, and in comedy, I find this that in a male-dominated art form, you often feel like you don't have an audience, that your voice isn't being heard in like a big picture. So that's kind of how I've been feeling in this class, which there are many funny women, but they're all like so much stronger at this particular type of improv and what we've been doing in the class than what I do. So it's just it's been kind of like humbling, which is good. But also kind of like spirit breaking, which isn't great. So I've definitely been
arts
like,
and all, right? The arts has a way of doing that sometimes. Like it's really challenging, and I feel so challenged, and then I just feel really like sad, and I don't know what to do. But I feel challenged.
Yeah, I'm like I'm paid money for it, so I'm gonna push through it as best as I can. But that has also meant like leaving class and then feeling terrible for a good 2 or 3 days until I'm like, well, that's it. I'm going to not care anymore about it until the next class. And then I'm like, oh, well, here I am.
Do you think it like, how does that look? Is it just because I remember those feelings too? Like I used to want so badly to be on the improv team in high school. Like I wanted it so bad. And like a lot, like my best friend in high school, Ava McDonald, who's been on this podcast, she was funny as hell and always got the roles, like all of that stuff. And I just like wanted to be able to like go up there and play and like, but like, I just never made it on. I don't even think I got into like the callbacks or anything like that. But I remember feeling it was different than acting, like with the script, obviously, but it felt more like when I went up for improv that I was like naked, like completely naked, and it scared the shit out of me. And I would feel like my face turn like red, and I definitely didn't feel comfortable. And maybe obviously that's where the not getting on the bloody improv team came from, but I remember feeling like what you're saying, like total shit most of the time. And they were really like fun people who weren't like mean or anything. It wasn't like a bunch of bully improvers, but like it definitely like kind of chewed me up. So why do you think that's happening? Like you're pretty like, versed in this and experienced. Like, what do you think it is about that old improv?
It could be so many things. I struggle with improv a lot in that like I love it for exactly what it is. But the thing, especially being in a community and in a city where comedy is so much of what people come here for and it's what it's known for, there's just a lot of pressure. And with improv, you're not like, none of the tools are tangible tools. So you're not given a script, you're not giving sides, you're not given, much to go off of other than maybe a suggestion of like, can I get a word that reminds you of your childhood? And you're like, balloon. And then you have to figure out something to do with that. And I think it depends entirely on who you're playing with, and how well you know yourself, how well of a listener you are. I do think that improv makes people better people, in general. Sometimes, not always, but there's plenty of terrible people out there that are improvisers, but there's plenty of terrible people in every medium. It doesn't matter.
True. That is very true.
Yeah. But I think it's just like, it's you are literally the only tool you have on stage. And if you have any doubts about who you are, how you feel, where you're at, that's going to be reflected in a lot of ways.
True. Yeah.
And so, if one of my teachers, her name is Tara DeFrancisco, and she runs a theater called the Nest Theater in Columbus, Ohio. And she's incredible. She was one of my favorite people that I studied with. And she said, she might not have been the original person who said this, but she told us in class that, improv is not therapy, it's therapeutic. And so it's, Ooh. I know, right?
That's true. I like that. 'Cause you don't know yeah, it's true, right? Like you come out with different feelings and different things in the moment that like you haven't rehearsed them. It's not something that you can like write. Like you might find an outlet in writing and write down everything that you're feeling and put it into words or a play or something like that. But like it really does actually strike you in the moment, and like maybe even what happened that day within your life might even come out in certain ways.
Right. There have been plenty of scenes where like some of my best friends in the world that I've met in Chicago that I consider family are people who I met through doing improv. And it's because when you're doing improv with somebody and it's somebody you trust and somebody you've done it with for a while, it's hard not to build this sort of really unique sense of trust in that, like, they got your back. They're not going to let you look like an idiot. They're going to make sure that you're taken care of on stage. And that's something that's invaluable as a performer. And I think that when you are working in scenes with people that you're so close with, and these are scenes that are completely, unscripted, just coming out of your mouth, it's very easy to bring real life into that in some way. And I think, I've definitely gotten through scenes where I'm like, I know I'm kind of angry at this person, and it's definitely coming out in this scene. Whoops. Or you're like, or like, I have a crush on this person, so I'm going to make them, my baby daddy. I don't know. I may or may not.
I'm going to make them marry me, and then we're going to be married. And they don't even know it because I hired a real
may or may not have
minister.
done that. I'm sure I have. But
you're married to like many people.
I am improv married to. I polygamize all the time.
Improv polygamy. Welcome to tonight's show.
Yeah, it's a problem. We have a support group.
That's good.
And it's so easy to get really emotional. It's so easy to, and in that way, and I think that's where I'm very in tune with my feelings, with my emotions. I'm very sensitive. And I think that's why a lot of times when I'm on stage, I tend to veer towards something that's dark and like heavy versus something that's light and fun, because that is so much more comforting to me in a way. I find that my voice is a little different because I like to play from a very honest place and find comedy through that versus like, I'm going to come out in a kooky character and like be crazy, which I appreciate as an audience member, and I love playing with that as somebody in a scene. But that's never my go-to.
It's like somebody who's kooky, zany, sort of physical comedian. People who, you're totally right. I can think of the types of people you're talking about. Like, and I come from the same place you do. I think like I would put more of a dark, serious spin on things, then come out and be like, whoa, look at me, I'm a wacky man. Like I just wouldn't like it. It's not where my brain goes at all.
Yeah, and I much rather be. What I feel like when I'm at the height of my improv in a scene with people, I am a very believable person who says ridiculous things and makes them believable.
And you're doing it, sounds like, because it scares you, and so you're pushing yourself. But like, is that something that you want to keep doing? Like, is improv like an ultimate thing you're like looking to master, like looking to, or is it sketch, or is it that you want to be in plays, or like what exactly is that story arc for you personally, creatively?
Well, what I'm finding is because when I came here, when I moved to Chicago, I'm originally from Rochester, New York, and when I moved to Chicago, what I found was that I came here to do improv, and I thought improv was going to be a door to something bigger, something greater. And it wasn't necessarily, it was to something bigger and something greater, but it wasn't what I had initially had hoped for or thought it was going to be. Like, I thought it was going to be like, ooh, I can, audition for pilots, or I can, get on a house team at a very prestigious theater and just like do reps, and hopefully someone will see me and I'll get a break somewhere. Like, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen for me. And what it really did was open a door to so many more doors.
It was just this haunted house full of doors.
Everything's terrifying. Yeah.
I don't know what door to go into. There's so many freaking doors.
It's like, so doing improv, I realized I don't love improv. I love it in that it is another tool. It is a hobby. It's very hard, if not impossible, to make a comfortable living doing just improv. And that's what I've really gauged from improv is that
is that I cannot survive on this.
No. And personally, and I'm saying this with just honest truth, I'm not good enough to survive on it. Which is like something that does not bother me at all. It crushed me for a little bit after my first year of doing it. But you know what? The thing is it doesn't make me nearly as happy as other things I've started doing either. So in a way, it's a win-win for me.
Yeah. Totally. It is. Yeah. I mean, I kind of get that there's certain things that like you just want to be good at, because I know for me, like there's certain people I idolize. Like that's sort of where it came from, improv. Like my interest in it was I wanted to be like Jim Carrey. I wanted to be like, but it's just not me. It's like I still idolize those people. I still see that they're like the best, and I love them for it, but it's definitely not something that's going to be like easy for me. But sometimes we think, oh, we love and idolize certain people or certain like accolades, and it's just because you think it's cool and maybe not that you're great at it.
Right. And I mean, you never know until you try these things. Right. And so
exactly.
And I do think as an artist, you have to constantly do things that scare you or challenge you or push you. Otherwise you're never growing.
Totally.
And you're not learning anything about yourself that you can use later. So it's, I'm grateful that I did it. I'm grateful that I still do it because when I have a team that I perform with, and we're called, our show is called The Customer's Always Right. And we perform, we're starting another run of performances on Friday. And basically it's a show where we have like a person, it has been a friend in the past, but sometimes it's a complete stranger, and they come up and they tell a bad customer service story. And it's all about like, usually they were the waiter or the customer service representative or associate or whatever, selling clothes or books or serving drinks or whatever. And we take that story and then we use that to inspire our improv for another 20 minutes.
Yeah. See, like that inspires, like just ignites like terror into my heart. No, not because you would be bad at it. I'm not saying you guys would be bad at it.
Totally,
it's just like, I think about it and I'm just like, holy shit, like 20 minutes.
It goes by really quickly when you're doing it,
so.
Yeah.
And
we do 2 sets of that. So sorry.
No, I mean, like, I love watching that kind of stuff, but like, I'm just trying to think of it in the way of that as a performer. Obviously, I'm like completely not anywhere near as experienced as you guys are. But I think about it and I'm like, I just remember that feeling of like my eyes probably darting back and forth, like I'm on some sort of wacky drug trying to figure out like, what the fuck am I going to do for 20 minutes about a bad customer service story? But that's where, let the artists come in, just like you guys. You guys walk on stage and you can do that. It's amazing. That's really cool.
Well, and improv at its worst is you're on stage, you have no idea what to do, and you're terrified, and you feel naked and vulnerable, which any improviser has felt at some point while they've been doing it.
Right.
Improv at its best is you with your closest friends on stage just making shit up and having a great time doing it. And that's
I guess when you put it like that.
Yeah. And that's what this show has become for me. So this is not this is not my make it or break it moment, I don't think. If it is, I'd be shocked. But, it's really more of I'm just having a good time with people I really care about. And I get to be on stage while I do it, which is something that I will never grow tired of. So that's kind of what it comes down for me, is that it's just a fun thing that I can do that helps me practice other things in my creative nature or spirit, whether it be, I want to try out this line or this premise, or, there's a person on my team and I want to see what they can take as far as if I threw this out there, it's a way to feel challenged in a way that's still kind of clicking into that sort of creative psyche. Does that make sense?
Right. No, it totally does. Within that, though, I know that they're completely different beasts, but have you ever tried or done stand-up comedy?
No. That is something that terrifies me, and I don't think I'll ever do it. I have done storytelling, which is a little different, in that it's just you're not setting yourself up for laughs, and you're telling specific stories that are very personal to you. So it's that I really enjoy, and that was very cathartic and very fulfilling. Stand up to me is really, really challenging, and I think it takes a very particular type of personality to succeed in it and excel and get far. I don't want to try and be that person. I have no desire. It takes a lot of work. From what I've gathered from people who are friends of mine that are successful in doing it or are attempting to be, it's very lonely, which I'm an extrovert. So I thrive on being around people for the most part. And I love working with people. I love collaborating with people. So for me, doing stand-up, that doesn't seem like it's playing to my strengths. So
yeah, that makes sense, because you've noted a couple of times that being with the best of your friends, or being on stage with people who you really love, or working on something with other people. So yeah, that totally makes sense. Stand-up definitely seems like kind of a lone wolf situation.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not just I would never say I would never try it. But at the same time, I feel like if I did, I kind of already know what the outcome would be, which would be me being really awkward on stage for too long. So
just trying to avoid the spotlight. You're just walking away. They're trying to follow you with it. You're supposed to stand in the spotlight, Julie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't find my light.
That would be a whole act. And then you just spend 8 minutes just avoiding the spotlight and then leave. And then people would just be like, what the hell was that? Experimental stand-up.
We might have just created my one-woman show. So
I think we did. I think you should write just that. Avoid spotlight.
Help, I can't find my light.
At end. Yeah, exactly. You just named it. It's perfect.
Yep.
Done and done.
Yeah, you've made that the simplest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, that makes total sense though in terms of comedy. But so I'm interested to hear a little bit about how this bridge to burlesque. I'm assuming burlesque came after your improv, or was it mixed in, or how did that get introduced?
People come up to me being like, "Oh my gosh, you should audition for Burlesque. You should audition for Burlesque," because Annoyance does a show called Burlesque is More, which is a burlesque show, but with more of a comedy angle on it. So it's not, it's not Dita Von Teese going out there picking a song and sitting in a martini glass, exactly. But it's more of a bunch of women, all different shapes and sizes, creating a character and then creating kind of a dance burlesque routine to some song in that character. Okay, so, I see. Yeah, it's more of an original comedic take on it. But there are some people that have been a part of the cast that do burlesque outside of that show who take on more of a traditional angle as well. So it's kind of unique to the performer, but you are taking your clothes off. You are showing a lot of skin. You are being very sexy and seductive with what you're doing. It is about female empowerment. That's the thing is burlesque is not about sex per se. It's about enjoying the female body and its beauty. It's a craft. It's an art. It's not like a striptease.
Right. So, yeah. I think people don't fully get that. I think It's still something that's like sort of, at least in Toronto, like perceived as a bit more underground. Like you wouldn't necessarily see like a burlesque house that's like open like a strip club is, but like I couldn't tell you, like I'm with in the creative community ish, and like I don't necessarily know a place to go and see that, like, for sure. I know that like I've seen posters and stuff like that, but I think burlesque is still sort of like underground here. Is it sort of the same in Chicago, or is there like some other movement that's going on there?
I think there is a movement kind of afoot. There's a big scene for it in Chicago. Like you can take burlesque classes and it's just, I think it's just kind of been reinvigorated with a lot of the sort of liberal pop culture that's been kind of flourishing lately, like with drag and stuff like that. So
yeah, true, right.
And here there's just, there's such a mecca for that colorful kind of liberal expressionism. And so I think here it's just been doing really well. So burlesque, there's definitely a community for it here. And it's you could kind of find it anywhere. And like a lot of even variety shows, they'll have a burlesque performer and they'll just do a little act like randomly in the middle of like a variety show at a comedy club. So it's kind of just peppered in a lot of weird places, but it's very cool because it's something that I think there should be more of now that I've done it and I've kind of fully experienced it from both sides of like audience and performer. But I was kind of like, and having gotten a lot of the success in the past year of performing and getting a lot of validation more than anything of like, oh, I am good. I can do things. People want to see me do things. And that's very nice to hear.
Right. Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's something always helpful. You know, I obviously, you know, when you are you're going after something that you care about, you're doing it for you, or you should be doing it for you and not like what the potential outcome can be, whether it be like, you know, money, fame, whatever. But, you know, it always is very encouraging when, you know, people are responding to it. And that's why you do it.
Right. So do you feel like from this kind of blindsided you where people were pointing you in that direction, or had you seen a burlesque show at Annoyance and thought, okay, this is something I might do? Or was it more so people saying, hey, you should try it?
There's a couple things. So I took classes, when I took classes of The Annoyance, one of my teachers was in that show because it's a reoccurring show and they just kind of change the cast up every once in a while. And my teacher was in it. So I went and saw her and I was like, and I felt very empowered as a woman. And this was like 2 years prior to now. And I remember thinking, God, I wish I could do that. But like, I don't think I'll ever be able to. And now we're 2 years down the line. My body hasn't really changed that much. I am a plus size woman and, with like, you know, curves in all the right places and some of them in what might not be the right places, but, it works for me.
Oh, that was adorable. I'm not, yeah, whatever. Fuck it.
But you know, I still have a lot of work I'd like to do, but at the same time, like I'm definitely learning how to love myself. And every time I do this burlesque act, I feel more closer to that. And,
that's so beautiful. That seriously, that sounds amazing.
Well,
I would feel like that it would terrify most people, but like, it makes sense though. If people are celebrating, like people who find themselves at that show are going there, obviously, you know, like
I saw my teacher do it and I was like, oh, that was amazing. Maybe one day. And the amount of confidence I've gained from feeling successful in some way, really helped me kind of come into my own and feel like I found my voice. And I think a lot of that also had to do with turning 30 and just deciding I don't care what people think so much anymore, because you're just too old for it at some point. And
yeah, it's an I am who I am moment, I think. And then like you have the ability to change certain things about yourself if you're truly unhappy with them. And you have to also analyze that, as we know. Like you can't always just say, boom, the first thing that comes to mind that I'm unhappy with, I have to like completely change, because sometimes that could be from external sources that have been influencing that feeling, right? So I think that if you get to a point where you're good, you feel fine as you are and want to celebrate then that's fucking awesome.
Been probably the most personally validating thing I've ever done. I have struggled with my weight and my body image for so long, especially as a performer. Yeah. So being like a plus size woman, I just kind of felt that, I wasn't going to get the roles I wanted or that I thought I could do because I didn't fit this idea of what is socially acceptable or accessible as a, leading woman or beautiful woman or, normal average woman. And I especially had a couple of friends who were bigger women who had agents, and they were often getting like weight loss commercials and stuff like that, which is, there's not that there's anything wrong with that, but at the same time, that's not really what I want to represent. And that's not necessarily an art craft. That's a sales thing. So,
right. Yeah, totally.
So, and there's so much more to being a human being than what the package looks like, so that's not really what I wanted to do. And so I guess I felt comedy was a good place because, you look at the amount of people that have been like Melissa McCarthy, who's been incredible, and Amy Schumer, who's not perfect, or like, she's not this average or beautiful model-esque
type thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Those are better words.
Amy Schumer, who's a fucking whore. No, I'm just kidding. No. But just like, I know what you're meaning. Like not the picturesque, like cookie cutter sort of like what you would normally see. She definitely challenges and she brings that up too, of saying like, hey, again, this is me, like take it or leave it.
Right. Totally. And I fully respect that and appreciate that. So so doing burlesque was never something I thought I'd be able to put on my resume. And even like dancing, so it's just, dancing was always something I loved, but I always felt like, I was never going to get picked for dancing because I'm not, a ballerina. I'm not, someone who's going to be on Broadway as, a 42nd Street dancer, it doesn't matter, but yeah. So I basically felt that I was marginalized and like kind of stuck into what I was being seen as. So it just became harder to pursue things that I felt I could succeed in and excel at. And that was something that I had to struggle with for a long time. And I will forever struggle with that because I can't change the industry alone. So,
no, right. Yeah. But like in a way you kind of are for yourself as well, because like you're challenging other standards and things like that like you're putting yourself on stage and like you're doing things that maybe in another time you would have shied away from or something like that.
Totally. And the thing is a plus size woman, the thing is I carry myself with a lot of confidence, which is something I do fake from time to time. But I carry myself with a lot of confidence. I dress in a way that flatters me. I know my angles. I'm very good at hair and makeup. So like, however I'm presenting myself is something that I feel good about. And I think that shines through a lot. So I think it's just being confident in what you are putting out there makes the difference of how people see you, because I know full and well that I don't see myself the way that other people see me. Which I see myself in a harsher light is what I'm getting at. So, I think when you are somebody who does have, some extra weight or, feels like you took a long time to get to a place where you felt like you loved yourself, that's something that you'll always be battling. It's like, I don't see myself the way other people see me. And it's because I see myself in a worse light versus like seeing myself for who I actually am.
Right. But like, do you feel that you kind of came to that a little bit through your work with being on stage, but how did burlesque even push that further for you? Are you still doing it?
Yeah. It's currently running. And I'm so proud of it. But it was like that Christmas show, cause in that Christmas show, I was Clarice. I was Rudolph's love interest, and I had my own song, and I felt cute all the time, and it was great. And, and I think it was the first time that I was at a theater and I was on stage and I had a lead and I felt like people saw me. Like I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt appreciated. I felt people were acknowledging my skill set and saying, I like that. I want to see more. And so the Annoyance was really the first place where I felt that way about a theater, that I was being appreciated as an artist, for exactly what I'm bringing to the table, which is just me. Right. So, a lot of people kind of approached me to be like, oh, you should try out for burlesque. Also because I do have curves, you know, that generally is there's this like pro body, you know, I don't even remember the name of the movement, but like, you know, self-love and body positive movement. Yeah. That is kind of in movement. So for me, I was like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. Like, I'd have to kind of sit and reflect on it. And I had a couple, especially one of the cast members came up but I think it's just because I know my body well enough at this point, and I take enough care with myself that I know how to dress in a way that I find flattering. And because I have confidence, like, a lot of that through, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So people were kind of coming up to me being like, you should audition for this. I think you'd be really good at it. And again, it was one of those things where it's like, I don't see myself that way, but I'll think about it. And then I found out it was the same director of this Christmas pageant. And I was like, who's one of my very good friends. His name is Chris, and he's a brilliant director, and I love working with him. And he was now directing this burlesque show. And I was like, oh, you know, this could be a really great thing. This might be something I need. This is challenging. It's scary. It kind of fit all the criteria of like, why do I want to do something creative? Right. And because it was him that was directing, I was like, I think this is going to be my now time. It's either going to be now or never that I do this. And so I auditioned and I wrote a piece. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I play a bunch of instruments. And
I don't think I did know that. I knew that you sing, and I knew that you were like, you know, you're an actor and everything. I didn't know that you played instruments though.
Yeah, so I play saxophone, alto saxophone.
Sweet.
I play flute and I play ukulele and I play some piano. Not well, but some. And I want to make sure that's clear.
Don't hire me for piano playing.
No, you'll be so regretting that you did.
I will ruin your show.
But I wrote this piece that integrates saxophone playing. And just to give a small premise, so it's all like, it's kind of like a solo piece. So I wrote this character, and her name is Georgia Whispers. And
nice.
And she is a late night radio talk show host, much in the vein of Delilah.
Oh, yes, I know Delilah.
Yeah. But and she's obsessed with two things. One is her saxophone, because her saxophone helps punctuate her feelings because she's very soft spoken, and so sometimes she needs her saxophone to really emote what she's trying to get across.
Okay.
But also she's really obsessed with George Michael. So
nice, sexy sax man, right on.
Of course. So, and when you say that, when you put those things together, you think, oh, Careless Whisper. So, which has kind of become my theme song as of the last year. Yeah, no, it's pretty great. I have not tired of it. I'm not tired of it. I also keep using that word wrong, and I'm just going to stick to it. But
keep going.
So that's kind of the gist of what I do, and I play my saxophone a bunch of times, and then there's a bunch of like little gags that I do through my dance. But I have gotten such positive reception, and every time I'm on stage doing this bit, and because I've also have like, now I have a suitcase full of lingerie that I never thought I would own, that I have to carry around with me every Saturday. So that feels like a unique experience, and I kind of feel like a sex worker, and I'm kind of okay with it. But
you should be. That's amazing. Just a suitcase of lacy, unmentionables.
Yep. That's essentially it. But what I was afraid of was like somebody in the audience being like, get that person off. Like, like somebody like catcalling me for all the wrong reasons, and then feeling, like a dump of a person afterwards.
Right. You're worried about like a heckler or something like that.
Totally.
Kind of calling out things you might be insecure about.
Right. Or like throwing like a piece of ham at me, which is just like, I
mean, like, do they serve ham at the restaurant? Or would this said person have to bring the ham in with them?
I guess, like, because this was literally like a thought I had. I was like, what if someone just like threw ham at me, or like something at me to make me feel like, a animal versus a human, or like,
right. Yeah,
fatty,
no, I get it. Yeah.
Or,
you know what I say? You should just pick it up and throw it right back.
I just probably pick it up and be like, what? I'm going to eat this. Thank you for this gift.
This looks like some delicious ham. I hope it's soaked in honey.
Exactly.
Yeah, fuck that fake person.
But that never happened.
Good.
And,
of course it didn't.
Of course. And actually, it was like, I think it was last week I was doing this, and someone was like, take it off. And I was like,
whoa.
Okay. Which was like the exact opposite reaction. But at the same time, like, in a way, and that, even though that's not always appropriate, but at the same time, for me, I was like, oh my God, you want to see my boobs? Like, great. So
great. And then you just took it off.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I didn't say that, but I
think
used
you
my
probably
actions, not my
should've.
words.
Yeah, you probably should have said, I'm gonna do it, and then just did it.
So but it's been incredibly validating being up there, feeling incredibly beautiful and sexy, which is something I don't think I've ever felt in my life. And so really it's just been, it got me to a place where I feel like I've never could have felt this way like in my life of just
Wow.
like, yeah, when I started doing this, a bunch of the women in the cast, kind of said that, like, in your first dance or your first and second dance or of doing this, there's just like this, like, it's almost like, did you ever see Buffy?
Like the Vampire Slayer?
Yes.
Yes, I did. I did see Buffy.
Well,
I did. I have.
Have you
Yep.
seen like the? Have you seen the series though? Like in its full.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
I remember most of it. I did watch it.
So the way I felt, and it was the second week I did this, because my first week I was actually very sick on my first night, so I felt like not physically well. So I did it, and I felt good about it, but it wasn't what I was hoping I'd feel. And then the second week I had a bunch of friends in the audience, and it was incredible. And it was almost like that feeling of like that last episode in Buffy where all of the potential slayers become the chosen one, and there's this like power of like, femininity and strength that kind of just flows through them. And that's kind of what I imagined it feeling like, or like looking like from the outside, is like, there's just this like incredible energy. It's like female empowerment that surges through you. And all of a sudden it's like, even if someone did throw a piece of ham at me, I wouldn't care, because
It's just going to bounce off your female empowerment.
Exactly.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Actually,
force.
really, that sounds like magical for sure. Like, it's definitely something that it sounds like could only happen in a very particular situation.
Yeah. And I just like, and even regardless of like the fact that, yes, I'm taking my clothes off, and yes, it's, it's about body positivity. And I kept on telling myself, like, the thing is there needs to be more of people like me and more women like me changing what beauty is in a way that people, in a way that people can see it. Because the way the industry works is like, there will always be people that are going to say, thin is in, or, you don't fit this type or the size. And until there are examples of plus size women in places that are beautiful, that is not going to change in the masses.
Absolutely. It's all about visibility. It's all about that. You're putting yourself out there in a positive light, right? Like, that's how it's going to happen. That's how change is done.
Right. So for me, this was, if I don't do this, who will? And, I need to be that person for those women who come to see their friends, or those women that just wanted to have a fun night out, who don't think of themselves as like cookie cutters or worthy or beautiful. And I need to show them that they are. So that was kind of the thing that kept pushing me to say, yes, I have to do this. Yes, I have to do this. And as much as that was a big part of it, like, honestly, the amount of personal, emotional growth and confidence I've gained from it has been insurmountable. Like, it's been so much more than I could have ever imagined it would be. And I get to do it every week, or almost every week. And it's constantly just being like reinstated in my body. It's like, you're great, you're beautiful, you're powerful, you're talented, you're worthy. And people just like yell and they holler and they laugh, and it's responsive. And it's like, it never feels like failure.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like, like a true, I don't know, it sounds like the perfect mix for an artist, right? Like, it's like challenging, but then it's also seems to be really, really like a good payoff in many different areas for you, right? And probably for everybody who's up there with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about our cast too is that, you know, there's women of color, there's small women, there's large women, there's, you know, it's just, there's no right or wrong person who's doing it.
Yeah, which is the best. That I mean, yeah, the less criteria, I think, it makes things much more interesting.
Right. And the piece I wrote is great. And, you know, I show my real abilities that I have, and then I get to go and like feel like $1 million at the end of it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's definitely something that, like you said, it was one of the major or many doors that sort of presented itself in that hallway to you.
Right.
Yeah. And how
my Willy Wonka. Yeah.
Yeah, your Willy Wonka. Yeah, house of burlesque. I'm curious to hear like how, because people always react in bizarre ways. Sometimes we can't totally expect exactly what we think we will get from people. So like, have your friends and family, or have you sort of opened this up to your friends and family and let them know that this is something you're exploring?
Well, you know, there's a lot of promotional pictures out there that we took, which was so much fun. I mean, we hadn't even performed yet, and we took a bunch of promotional pictures in like, you know, lacy robes and lingerie and corsets and, on the stage. And those are out there for everyone to see on the internet. So I certainly haven't been hiding it. And right. Surprisingly, like even my very conservative aunts and uncles have liked it. And not uncles. Not uncles.
Let's rephrase.
That's weird, but yeah, I'm just going to rewind. Not uncles. Yeah. But I mean, a lot of people, and I think a lot of it too does come from being a person that, in the past, they've seen me kind of struggle with my weight or with my confidence or with my self-worth. And I think a lot of them have seen it as, you know, empowering, or, you know, they're proud. My mom is actually coming to see the show at the end of June.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which for me, like, cause it's money. She's a very open-minded person, and
yeah, she is, but she's quite, like your family's a bit conservative. Would that be correct to say, or?
Well, so I was raised Catholic in a primarily like Irish German family. And so it's definitely, if anything, it's probably moderate at best. I would definitely say myself and a few of my cousins are very liberal, but it's most of the time on a good day they're moderate. But we definitely have. I know there are some Trump supporters in there somewhere, and I choose not. I choose not to label them or talk to them about it, because at the end of the day, he's just not worth ripping my family apart. So,
yep, that's very true.
Yeah, I'm not okay with it, but at the same time, like, I can't change them. So, yeah. So, I mean, I don't really know what people think of it as far as like family. My friends have all been incredibly supportive. I've had a lot of friends come see it. I've had a lot of friends that I've met through the theater come see it, and they have said such wonderful, wonderful things. And even people that I don't know at the end of the show, like I feel very comfortable in saying like I'm a fan favorite, and I think it's just because I play the saxophone. In my piece, which nobody else plays a live instrument. So
yeah, it sounds pretty unique. And I'd imagine you're making it, you know, you're using it as a prop, obviously, and it's
totally
highlighting different parts of it. So that definitely sounds funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's something I'm very proud of, and it's a crowd pleaser, you know. And so I always feel really good coming off the stage, generally. But the reception I've received has been primarily really good. My mother's coming to see it at the end of June. I'm very excited for this because she is very open-minded. I love drag, and I love kind of like gay culture, and it's something that I got into actually when I was in Toronto, because it was the first time I was really exposed to it. And coming to Chicago, that's only really been enforced a lot because it has a very rich pride scene and all of that. And I love it so much because it's free. It's freeing. It's liberating. I love seeing people kind of express themselves in their most true form. And I think that's like the most beautiful thing you could possibly do. And so, for me, doing burlesque is like in a way that, and so I actually introduced my mom to drag because whenever I go home, like if like at Christmas time, they always have Logo like Drag Race reruns. And that's like generally what I watch when I'm home.
I thought that you were going to say that like you go back to Rochester and like Rochester's just like this underground hotbed for like drag queens and that like you go to shows with your mom in Rochester. And I'm like, I can't see Rochester like doing that, being that way. But
They do
watching... I'm sure they have it. I mean, like every city does, but I just, the drag race reruns make a lot more sense in my brain.
Well, I mean, I think I could take my mom to a drag show and I think she would like live through it and be like, that was really interesting. And I actually had a really good time and I,
for sure,
enjoyed it, but I didn't know what I was getting into. Like, she likes seeing people at their best.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to go to a drag show and not have a smile on your face because like, you're right. It is definitely, cause a good time, there is like very little like issue, you know what I mean? Like it's not intimidating or like angry or aggressive in any way. Like you go and it's just, it really is a positive experience. But like for some reason I would feel like she'd go and definitely get pulled up on stage.
Well, I mean, I think if you see an older woman who totally looks out of place, but she's there, she paid her ticket and she looks like she's enjoying herself, they're going to be targeted like 100%. Because who doesn't love a mom?
Right.
Yeah. So, and my mom is the kind of person that's like everybody's mom. So I'm really excited for her to come see the show.
That's going to be a great moment, I think, for you guys.
I think, because she's been with me for a lot of this struggle, this journey that I've gone on while I've been in Chicago, because there were plenty of times where I felt like stuck and I didn't know where to go next. I wasn't getting the satisfaction I wanted out of my career. I didn't like my day job. So on top of like not feeling creatively satisfied, I wasn't making enough money or I felt, like I wasn't doing enough.
Right.
And that's when that's when I went into therapy and kind of like figured out how to like myself, figure out how to love myself, figure out how to work through all my shit. And she's been with me 100% of the time. So like, well, in spirit, but she's not dead. She's,
I know. she's a person. She's alive. She's alive.
Yeah. She's alive.
I know
what
you mean, but like, it's going to be great for her to like in person come and see you and be there for it all. When she's kind of been at a distance, coaching and helping you from heaven. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep. Yeah. She's corporeal. And so I'm very excited about it, but at the same time, I'm like nervous. I'm very nervous, because she's never seen me do anything like this. And she has always been the person that's believed in me the most, but she's also been the person to like, be real with me too. So if I'm, being crazy or rude or mean or too honest, she'll be the first person to be like, cut it out.
Right. But it's kind of cool. Like it'll be interesting to see what her response is. Because for sure, like mothers and fathers kind of no holds bar sometimes, like they'll tell you exactly what they think of it. And sometimes I find it's the worst when you sort of know what they already tell you, but like you've been working to push it away and ignore, like maybe it's not your best work or maybe it's this, and they'll be the one to point it out. But I don't get the sense that that's what's going to happen with this. I think your mom's going to be like so proud of you.
I really hope so. I mean, I'm sure I'll probably cry because I cry at like everything, but don't
do it like while you're doing the burlesque, because like a crying person dancing is just not good.
No, I mean, that definitely is a boner killer from what I've gathered.
Just total boner killer.
But, I really just want her to see like this product that's come out of this journey. And, because I mean, even kind of telling her, she's like, wait, so how naked do you get? Like, what is going on here? Cause like, and she kind of thought it was more of like a stripping thing. I'm like, right. Well, that's a part of it, but it's a much smaller part to a far bigger picture. And, and it is about like kind of just loving your body, and letting other people love your body, but not being able to touch it or experience it.
Right. Yeah. It's not like,
right.
sex work specifically.
Yeah. exactly. We're not like at the Golden Rail or whatever that place is.
Some sort of rail. There's like rails everywhere, brass rails.
That's what I was thinking of.
Is that the one you're talking about from Toronto?
Yeah.
There's probably one in Chicago named that too, because I feel like every so original like strip bar club owner is always like, I know, I'll call it the brass rail.
Right. Of course.
Of course. Original.
I know. Good work. So I am very well, and it's one of those things too, where it's like the people who are closest to you, their opinions matter the most. So even though you know you're doing good stuff, like you can't, the idea of like disappointing her or like is heartbreaking to me, because it's as good as, and I don't think that'll be the case, but it's like, but no matter how many times she's seen me do stuff that she felt proud of, like whether it be music or whatever, it's always like, oh, well, you're my mom. You're supposed to feel that way. Yeah. And so it's almost like it's easier for me to hear her be like, you need to work on that, versus like, oh my God, I loved it. Which is so messed up. But it's, you take the opinions of people who are closest to you as bias. My parents, because they've seen me my entire life, obviously. And so like, but this is very different because it's something that's outside of her comfort zone. So if she doesn't like it, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, that was my next question, was like, well, what if she doesn't? But yeah, I think it's something that, from how you've talked about it, like it can't be something that you give up, because it's beyond about you now. It's about you, but it's also like, you're talking about a movement. You're talking about women as audience members, like as a whole in our like culture and society. So, I mean, that's much bigger, and people can make impacts being on like in a show, in a Chicago theater, like that can make impacts. People see that and they get inspired and they feel something, and like, that's what it's all about, man.
Totally. And that's exactly what it's all about. And so in a way, this has been like satisfying in that I feel like I'm doing something that goes beyond myself. But it's purely using the abilities I have. So that has been like the coolest thing about it. It's been the most inspiring thing personally for me to like keep pushing myself and keep doing it. But like the feelings that I'm getting from this is like what I feel like everything I do artistically from here on out should feel like, which is also why I'm like,
point to measure by, for sure.
Yeah. Which is also why I'm like, improv, I don't feel this way. So I'm not going to care about it so much anymore.
It could just be a gateway drug to burlesque, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it has been. Is
right.
It has been my weed. It has been my.
This is my cannabis. Improv.
Yep. Yeah. I was trying to. I know there's other gateway drugs. I can't think of them.
Yeah, weed's the crutch that everybody leans on, though.
Yeah. Yeah, drugs are a whole other thing.
Anyways, though, but yeah, improv and burlesque sound like they have that sort of through line. But yeah, this sounds like a great, fantastic journey for you, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I know I talked to you a little bit about this like before this podcast, but I did a bunch of music and I recorded a bunch of music, and I wrote a very dirty song about a drag queen. And that got more response from conservative relatives than like my doing burlesque and having like saucy pictures online did. So
interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, I don't know. I think there's this weird thing about like seeing your relatives as sexual human beings, which is completely natural, but there's obviously, that's very uncomfortable for a lot of people, for most people, I would actually say. And I think that's what it comes down to, because one of my aunts asked my mom once if she's like, so is Julie a drag queen now? And I was like,
I mean, like, there's so many problems with what, like, where does one begin?
Right.
And you have to go back in time into your mom's womb and not be a woman, firstly. Born female. Like,
yeah, there's a lot. And I'm like, so clearly you are asking these things and you've done no research and you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And it's like, and I'm all for people having questions. I'm all for people asking questions. I think that's part of the conversation that needs to be happening a lot more, and being compassionate and empathetic about it.
Oh, for sure. But like, it would be better for your aunt maybe to reach out to you.
Right.
To say, Julie, like, this is really interesting. I can't claim to understand what you're doing or what this is all about, but what is it? But like, there's so much assumption, and then going to your mom to ask your mom, which sort of feels like a little bit of a backhanded thing. But yeah, that definitely is like misconstrued for sure.
Well, as much as I keep my mom in touch with what I'm going through, what I'm kind of working through, and or like, things that have come up in my life, she's getting a piece of the puzzle versus like the whole thing. So
absolutely.
And which is not to say that I keep anything from her, but at the same time, it's like, you're not me, you're not in my head, so like, you're not gonna get the whole picture. So there's definitely been some questions that have been raised, especially because this song is very dirty. Talks about pounding pussies into the floor and slithering into my Gryffindor, like just things that are very.
I'm feeling like maybe I should play this, edit it into the podcast, which I'm going to do with your permission.
Absolutely. I'm proud
Wonderful.
of this song. It's the first song I ever wrote. And it's the first song I ever produced. Well, I didn't produce it. A very amazing man named Brad Kemp produced it. And wrote or performed, and it's called Katya, and it's about a drag queen named Katya, who
I'm
is
familiar
very.
With Katya.
You are?
Yeah, RuPaul, man, like on Drag Race, she's the one who's like the Russian, the blonde one.
Yes.
Katya, yes.
Yes. So she is kind of, at this point in my life, as an artist, she's kind of like my biggest inspiration. And just because it's so complicated, because obviously there's so many things that come with drag, and as far as like layers of, expressionism and, gender and sexuality and all that. But
For
purely
sure.
as an artist, and I'm going to talk about her as a woman in drag, but as Brian, his name is Brian in real life, I love them both equally. But his persona as Katya in drag made me question so many things about myself, because I had so many mixed feelings in a good way, about her when I first saw her. But I also related to her more than I think I've ever related to anything in my life, when she was on the show, because she was so honest and genuine, and authentic in her voice and what she was putting out there. And then I would like watch kind of her videos and like listen to her, and she has such a big heart, and she has such a big message, and she genuinely just wants to help people through her art. She wants to talk to people. She wants to connect with people. And I guess it was through her that I realized, as an artist, we have a responsibility to be doing something bigger than ourselves always. And because if we are creative enough, powerful enough, brave enough to put ourselves out there doing something that we fully believe in, there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing that for more than just us.
Oh yeah, for sure. Needs to be for more than that. It feels better when it's for more than just you.
Absolutely. And so, but she's also she does comedy, primarily, even though I think she would probably argue that in real life, but, she's very funny, but she's also not afraid to be ugly or.
Yeah, that's very true. And she can be very serious too. Like she can be like, have that stoicism to her, but yeah, I can like clear and like not like a catty sort of scenario going on, very smart. Like, I don't know. I found her to be really interesting too, for sure. As a like a competitor on RuPaul's Drag Race is where I saw her.
And I think, I mean, that's when season 7 of Drag Race was the first season I watched while it aired. So watching her kind of walk in, I immediately like looked at her aesthetic, and I was like, that's the kind of, when growing up, there's, like, and you probably get this as a female, like growing up, there's always women that you are presented with in the media where you're like, oh, I wish I looked like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so growing up, mine was Robin Wright from Princess Bride.
Right on.
Yeah, I wanted to look like her all the time. Or I was going to say Carrie Elwes, but he's a man. And he was
Hey, man, you do you.
I mean, it's all
Whatever
good.
you
It's all
want.
good.
Then you would actually be a drag queen, and you have to call your aunt and be like, "Yes, I am a drag queen because I
You
am
were
dressed as
right.
Carrie Elwes."
But Robin Wright was one of them. She was always my favorite. And then when she was Penny in Forrest Gump, or Jenny, not Penny. That was a big one.
Just giving people different names. Yeah, Jenny and Forrest Gump. I remember her in that for sure. I'm pretty sure my only ones that I had were like a variety of the Spice Girls, and it like ended there.
That's all. I mean, that's great.
It's pretty big variety.
Yeah, I use so much to choose from. You could literally be anything.
Like it kind of just embodied every one of them at a different stage in my life, or like wanted to be one of them at different stages. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I went through a phase where I wanted to look like Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a weird one. But it's usually like these Robin Wright, like really beautiful bone structure, but like very powerful female, and even like seeing her in the Wonder Woman, even though she's only in like the first few scenes, I was like, oh yes, I was right all along. You were exactly who I want to be.
You were badass.
Yeah, and so Katya to me like very much resembles exactly what I always thought I wanted to look like when I was little. And so immediately I was like, that's the one I'm rooting for, having not heard her say a word except like in her Russian accent or whatever. And then kind of following her journey, it was just like one of those gut instincts, which like, I don't know. I feel very intuitive in that, like, if I meet you, I immediately know if I'm going to be your friend or not. Like on my first impression. And that's generally pretty accurate in my life. Or like, I will like compete with myself to be your friend, because I think you're that great.
That's one hell of a skill.
So when I immediately knew Katya was like the girl for me, on Drag Race, and she didn't disappoint at all. And I loved following her journey. And the more I heard her talk, the more I saw her go through her anxiety, her addictions, her, like self-deprecating self-sabotage. I was like, oh, this is like, I relate so hard to all this.
That's you and a drag queen, baby.
Yeah. So and her comment, like, cause I don't actually think I'm very funny. I mean, I can be, but I think I'm actually funnier in person, like in conversation versus on stage. So, which is also where like improv doesn't work for me. So, which I think is something I also share with Katya, because I'm not like when I'm with friends and I'm being stupid, I'm not afraid to be ugly or gross or weird. But if I'm on stage like that, and I think this is part of my body insecurity, is like immediately already being overweight. I'm like, oh, people already see me as like less valuable or less attractive because I'm overweight. So if I'm uglier on top of it, like, I might as well just be in the garbage. Like, that's really harsh, but
I mean, if that's you truly feel that way, but like, I mean, is that something that has changed at all? Like, hopefully that's not always.
No. That's not always the case. I think that's me on my worst when it comes to like being insecure, but has generally come out through improv, specifically. Because competing for stage time and like being whomever in a scene, it's also like one of those things where, as someone who doesn't find or took a while to find value in themselves as like a beautiful person or a sexual person or somebody worthy of love, if somebody is being inappropriate towards you, you get flattered versus offended for a long time. That was something that I dealt with a lot until probably a couple years ago, where I was like, oh my God, they're being so nice, when I'm really like, no, this is actually sexual harassment and I shouldn't feel validated by it. That's a whole other topic, but yeah, so Katya, getting back to what we're really talking about, Katya, so Katya made me feel a lot of things. And then watching her in All Stars 2, when she was like more confident with herself and kind of going through it the second time and like talking about how she was kind of like same thing, like she competes with herself. She's very competitive, but she's also like her biggest reason why she'll fail at things. It's just, I love her so much. And what she stands for and what she puts out there. And she's such a hard worker. And I think it's her authenticity, like her truth to self, that I feel more compelled to than anything. Because that's something I feel I didn't do for a long time, was like stay true to who I was and figure out.
That's pretty amazing to have somebody then, like to have that, it brings that thought out in you and makes you want to live that, like your truth. That's pretty powerful.
Yes, I agree. Which is why I wrote a song about her and how,
which we will play.
Yeah. And it's just called Katya. It's really dirty. And
Good.
There's, it was kind of like I took a Lady Gaga style-esque, like smoky club song and turned it into, I have mixed feelings about this drag queen because she's a man and a woman, and who am I? So
it's bringing something out in me.
So yeah, it's a good one. But I had a lot of questions about that song for my family, as I've already explained. And my mother has had a lot of questions about that song, because it was something that was very surprising to come out of my mouth, and people weren't expecting it, which was also why it was like my favorite thing to do. Yeah,
you had that wild card sort of effect on people.
Yeah, I love that. So that, and I like a lot of my all of my other music is pretty emotional driven, like, and pretty like straight edge and like to the point, and like just honest and vulnerable. So this is like definitely like sticks out like a sore thumb in my small discography of one disc. So yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, that was a lot.
No, that's all good. I think that sounds, I love that you also recorded some music, and we'll play that. And if you have any links to all of that like stuff, if people end up being in Chicago and want to check you out or follow you on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you're at, that's all good too. I'd be happy to post those. But just like my last question for you is where you kind of see yourself, like what the next big thing is. Is it still burlesque, or is there something else, or are you keeping it kind of open?
Well, I love burlesque, and I love doing it, but I think it's more for me than anything. I love being a representation of beauty for women out there, and I would love to keep doing that in other ways. Burlesque, I don't think, is the end all for me. I definitely staying open to projects, because I think as long as you're creating, you're doing something, and that's good. And I love creating with different people, and I love doing different things. And I think that the moment you kind of limit yourself to one medium, you're kind of doing a disservice to your artistic voice in a way. Yep. So I'm definitely always open to doing more or different things. And I do think I will probably be taking, at least like from working on improv instead of just performing improv. Like, I don't think I'll be doing that very much anymore, but I really love working with a script. And I haven't done nearly as much of that as I'd like to be doing. So I'm trying actually to get more into film, which I know you know a lot about.
I do.
Yeah. So that's kind of my next frontier, that I want to take on. And I think the thing about the journey that I've taken and all the projects that I've done, especially over the past 2 years, like, I don't think when I first got to Chicago, it's like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do this. I don't know if I'll ever have the confidence. I don't know if I'll ever have the resume. I don't know if I'll ever have the connections. And I feel like I'm finally at a point where all of those things, either they don't matter or I'm where I need to be. So I think, like, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get an agent or find representation, because, who wants to represent this body, or who wants to represent this voice? And I don't feel that way about it at all anymore.
That's great.
Yeah. And I so very much want to kind of challenge myself to get out there more, in bigger ways to affect more people. And I mean, that's the nice thing about music, though, is that there's so many independent music has become such a thing now. So, and there's so many places to do that. So like, I love creating music. I love doing music. I love performing music. It's at the end of the day is the heart and soul of who I am.
Right. So maybe that could definitely play into your next step.
Totally. The thing about music, though, is it's a very expensive hobby.
Yeah, very true.
And I don't make nearly as much money as I wish I was making. So, so it's like beggars can't be choosers. So I'm going to have to beg for a while when it comes to music, to like try and get as much made as I can. But, so right now, and as much as music is like the beating pulse of who I am, what I really, really, really want to do is do film and act more. So that is kind of where I'm hoping to go. But
awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of the next thing I want to focus on. But anything I can do along the way to like, I don't know. I very much feel I'm not really a religious person. I have a lot of issues with religion. But I very much feel that in the grand scheme of the universe and how it works, whatever that is, if you leave room for opportunity to fall into your life, it will. So, which is why sometimes I don't try to jam pack everything all at once into my life, because then you don't have room to say yes to things that you actually want to say yes to when they come your way.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually.
So, so I try to take on projects that really mean something to me, that I want to do, that, makes sense for me to do in that moment. So, if it's fun, that's the best. So, with people I like, because a lot of my friends who have gotten breaks or, all of a sudden their schedule wasn't their own, they miss times where they can just create what they want with the people they want to create it with.
Oh yeah. That's always the best stuff, is when you don't have that looming sort of, hold on you. You can get funding for something and it's like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. But like with that comes, responsibility to somebody who's higher than just what you want to be doing with who, right?
Exactly. And then you're, jeopardizing the artistic voice and message that you want to put into it. And it's there's so much compromise that has to be made when you're dealing with somebody bigger than yourself when it comes to this industry. So I take a lot of pride and joy in these smaller projects, because I would love to think that I will have an opportunity where I can, reach people in large and wide masses. But at the same time, these smaller things are so much where my heart is right now. So
good. So it sounds like you're just going to keep creating and you're going to keep doing what you're doing, but like you're open to a lot of different creative possibilities.
Exactly.
Fantastic. So where can people find you if they're wanting to follow or listen to your music, or if they happen to be in Chicago, where can people kind of find what you're up to?
All of my music is on my website, which is elizabeck.com. Eliza Beck is my stage name for music specifically and only. So Eliza, like as in Eliza Doolittle, and then Beck as in Beck.
.com.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Julie, for coming on. And I hope you keep doing what you're doing, because it sounds amazing. And I'm really happy to hear you're happy.
Thank you. This was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely. Okay, cool. I'll post all those links and everybody can keep up with what you're doing. And I think this is a good time to play your song. So here it goes.
No one's made me feel like this before. Wanna kiss and tell. I've fallen for a dirty Russian boy.
Split on the stage, selling my heart's in a throbbing rage, banging on the bars of this cold hard cage. You locked me in a world I of old age. Damn.
This has been an Evoke Media podcast.
Hard about fun stuff, I know the truth.